there's another video I want to watch. This one's actually by Mr. Happy. The video.
Hey,
Don't yell at me, Happy. You're supposed to happy, not yelly. So there's a whole update on housing, and a lot of people are treating this like as an attack specifically on 14. I did not look into this honestly, so I'm just gonna listen to Happy kind of talk about this because I don't want to read. I wear glasses, but I don't like reading. So let's kind of see what is the whole deal with the housing in World of Warcraft. Mind you, the housing they kind of tried something along the lines of housing, fucking AKA garrisons, and that was absolute shit. They tried to make certain like versions of housing, so it's like whatever the fuck this is gonna be, I'm not gonna be that impressed. It might be something nice, it might be something fancy, it might be something cool, but if I'm being completely fucking honest, I'm not having high hopes specifically for their housing systems because in the past, their ideas were very fucking silly and shit.
everyone, Mr. Happy here, and today we're doing something pretty different. Today, we're going to talk about World of Warcraft.
How fast does Happy's hair grow? Every time I see him, like, hey, first of all, he lost a lot of weight. Fucking good on him. Going to the gym actually is working out very, very well for him. But like every time I see him, I either see him like either close to bald or with long luscious hair. Maybe I need to watch him a bit more often, but it's like every time I watch any of his videos, he's either bald or he like specifically opposite of bald.
No, I'm not making the switch, and I'll probably bring up why periodically throughout this video. But World of Warcraft is getting a new feature that I think Final Fantasy XIV players should be keeping an eye on and should be openly discussing. And that is player housing. Yeah, for a long time, Final Fantasy XIV seemed to have the
Just to clarify, I can pretty much imagine where he's gonna go with this. I know we're fucking 20 seconds and I already paused like thrice. But keep in mind, the reason people aren't happy with housing is because housing is kind of shit on our side. It doesn't mean housing is going to be good anywhere else just because they have housing as well. Just because they're going to try to take jabs or anything, or because like we can compare functions. It's not out yet. We have housing, and our housing essentially, as long as our sub works, is our houses are part of the game. So it's like I don't know. I kind of like our housing system, but then again, I also don't give a shit about housing. But housing literally gives us nothing. If I'm be like some menial functions, maybe for crafters, maybe some FCs like to do events, maybe club owners, role players, etc. Some people find functions for them, but they're like self-created functions most of the time. Meanwhile, any actual function from the house is kind of pointless. I kind of don't care about the house. I care about my FC house, sentimental value for me, but anything else, my personal house, I'll probably fucking kill it. I'll demolish it at some point. Even I kind of don't care about it anymore.
edge in a lot of social aspects, despite the fact that our friends list is duct taped together and has been for the past decade. But it seemed like things like player housing and general social function was a little bit more fleshed out in our game. But while Final Fantasy XIV has kind of been resting on its laurels with a lot of those functionalities, World of Warcraft has been building up its other features that aren't just its Mythic Plus or its endgame rating or its PvP. And this is a
To be fair, they don't really have any other fucking functions to work on to begin with. They kind of release raids, dungeons, some extra kind of content, and then that extra content kind of goes into oblivion, and they continue just working on Mythic Plus and mainly raids, but in a more lazy way. To be fair, mainly raids actually. Mainly like the raids are the only good thing about World of Warcraft. Now the more I think about it, because like even Mythic Plus, they kind of got lazy. Like when Mythic Plus officially became a thing, it became officially a thing in Legion. We had like 12, 13 dungeons by the end of the expansion. Later on, we got like 4 dungeons, maybe a couple more after, and then 4 dungeons from old expansions for Mythic Plus. That's fucking stupid, isn't it? We're not getting any new tracks. We can essentially develop a stratch for every fucking dungeon in the game, and then we'll be prepared. It's kind of silly that they're getting this lazy by reusing older content, like and packaging it as main current content. A bit silly, in my opinion. But again, it's like Mythic Plus is people do it actually for a reason. It is fun for a reason.
prime example of that. So I've seen a few snippets of what this blog post describing it is online, but I have yet to read the blog post in its entirety. So that's what we're going to be doing here, and I am going to be contrasting the things that World of Warcraft is doing to Final Fantasy XIV to see what Final Fantasy XIV should be learning, or if there's maybe something that has me nervous about the World of Warcraft implementation of it. Just because they're adding player housing doesn't automatically mean it will be good, but I'm fairly optimistic about it coming from the Blizzard devs for this feature.
I'm not. I already have experience with the Blizzard devs at this point. Look, they always do this. They announce a feature. Ooh, we're getting things. Everyone is excited. Ooh, we're getting war fronts. We can have like battlegrounds with raid functions. Fucking dead thing. Ooh, exploration islands. They're gonna be like roguelike exploration things. It's gonna have so much variety. Nah. Dead. Practically on arrival. Whatever promises they made us, they were not fucking existent. There were just like a couple of variations to an island, but then people just mainly used it for farming aetheryte. After that, it's like, ooh, Torghast. Haha. This is bullshit. So it's like, same with garrisons. Like, everyone was excited. Ooh, my own personal space. Like, my own little garrison, my little castle where I can be. And it grows. I can build it up. Nah, motherfucker. Reset, bitch. You get 3 levels that you kind of have to build through story, and then certain things you just can kind of just swap them places. Honestly, there's nothing else in that garrison. It has like 4 extra buildings that you can kind of build up. It doesn't really have anything that it can offer you long term. You can roleplay in there, I guess. You can pretend you're cool. You can't really invite people there. You have to invite them into a party so they can enter. Otherwise, they'll just disappear at the entrance. So even housing, like, this sounds exciting on paper. Everyone in World of Warcraft at some point wanted personal housing. Private servers have housing. They've been giving people houses, like, to guilds, etc. Like, the bigger guilds, they will give them houses. But, those are private servers and devs who actually want to do things right. But Blizzard have been known to show the front of the house and just kind of just cut out everything behind it.
Probably have a pretty good idea of what people want when it comes to player housing. So the construction of the new housing system in Azeroth is underway, and we're taking you behind the scenes to give you an early look at what the housing development team has been working on. Watch your step and don't mind the dust. Yeah, I recall this getting announced sometime in the past, probably at a BlizzCon for the current expansion, or going over details for the current expansion, something of the sort.
Our current expansion is like just barely a year old, isn't it? Yeah, he's just a bit over a year old. As far as I remember. So it's like, even if it was announced, it's like, I don't know. They've announced things in the past that just didn't make it into the game anyway. They have done that in the past. God, it's like, maybe I'm just too jaded at this point. Maybe I'm too old. Maybe I've played both of those games a bit too much now. Because it's like every time, just like, I have a very cynical outlook, specifically on Blizzard and their development. Like, World of Warcraft in general has been like a lot of promises, not a lot of delivering. The only good thing they kind of delivered that people liked was Classic, because it's kind of content people like because retail is shit.
But this is our first,
and because it was already in its state, they didn't need to change anything. The newer modern devs, like 10 years later that it came to the studio, they didn't really need to change much. They just needed to give us the fucking content.
Real kind of deep dive into seeing it. Welcome home, adventurers. We're excited to kick off our first look at housing in World of Warcraft and share some of our philosophies and plans for this new feature with you. First up, we're focusing on the high-level design pillars for housing, as well as talking about a few key areas of housing as we lay the foundation for future discussions. Reminder for anyone who isn't too technically inclined, high-level means basically the basics. You know, you're not going deep into the inner workings of everything. You just want it to be something surface level that a lot of people can understand. So they're not going to be getting too much into the nitty-gritty with this one.
Also keep in mind, like, World of Warcraft uses very particular language. It is correct in terms that it will be essentially very surface level. I know he's talking specifically about explanations of housing, specifically in this blog post, but so is the housing. That's what it's going to be. The housing will be very bare bones. It's going to be very basic because it's a new function, and they need to see if people like it. If people don't like it, into the abyss it goes. Just like any other fucking new type of content they added to World of Warcraft in the past. I don't know. What year did Draenor came out?
Fortifying housing with pillars. That's a pun. When developing such a large new feature, it's useful to start by defining its pillars. They help the development team get on the same page before we start building, as well as providing a guiding light when making decisions and identifying priorities. All right, this is basically fluff. We need to get into the actual bits and pieces here. Okay, the 3 pillars of housing. Boundless self-expression. Our highest priority is to allow players to build a house that shows off their personal taste or their war bands, acts as a desired backdrop for role-playing, or just allows players to create something in a flight of fancy. The toolset should be easy enough for someone with no 3D experience to be comfortable with and use successfully, but it should also be powerful enough that players can surprise us with their creations or drill down to get the tiniest details just right. That's not pronounced gamut, is it? I'll say gamut anyway. The gamut of decor options spans not just the cultures of Azeroth, but the many expansions of World of Warcraft as well. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty standard. If your housing doesn't allow for self-expression, I mean, what's the point? Unless, of course, there's functions like, 14 Hours with submarines, but realistically, that should be the first pillar. 2, deeply social. Definitely should be the second pillar. World of Warcraft is more fun with other players. Sometimes. And the housing should be no different. While players can enjoy the housing purely on their own,
God, Happy's mic just keeps speaking. He needs a limiter.
Its systems are designed at a fundamental level to encourage interacting, playing, and progressing with friends, neighbors, guilds, and the wider community in a meaningful way. Yeah, I mean, that's, again, pretty standard stuff.
Like, allow people to visit your house. Like, I don't know how they're going to set this up. Is it going to be like garrisons? People will just be able to kind of come into your place only if they're in your party? Or like teleport to your garrison if you are there? I don't know. It's like, it's hard. Like, the more I think about it, like, I am kind of like skimming a bit through what Happy is reading here. But it's like, the more I kind of think about it, it's like, I'm kind of like not buying it anymore. Because like, the more I think about it, this concept is just not going to work in World of Warcraft. Not because of like specifically the player base or what people like and don't like. None of that wacky nonsense. It's just because the game never does anything like this. And if they make a system as complicated, as complicated as the one as we have in 14, like, let alone we get rid of all the like coloring of objects, let's say, because World of Warcraft doesn't do that for a reason, right? You can just move some items and just kind of place it in places. It's like, okay, I get it. But World of Warcraft never had a system like this. It's just technically either going to be omega buggy or just going to be shit. Like, there's no easier way to kind of explain this, but it's like, it's either going to be planned out a bit too ambitiously or it's going to be shit, the more I think about it. Because, like, they've tried this before. And it's like, either they're going to develop new functions for the engine, or it's just not going to fucking work. From what I say in the post he's reading, which wasn't much, which is normal for Bliss, maybe they could visit there in Sherlow. I mean, you could visit garrisons back in Draenor as well, but it's like, if you were in the party of that member. But like, garrisons in general, boring as shit, honestly. Hot trash, you can call it what it will more than likely be. Like, I like to give things a benefit of the doubt, but historically, any attempt of personal space or housing, it just never fucking worked out. It never worked out properly. Like, people in private servers managed to work it out properly, but they had to put a lot of work on it. But Blizz themselves, they are historically a bit incompetent when giving players specifically what they want. Because these are the same devs that thought that fucking mana pearls were the hottest shit and people enjoy collecting them back in BFA.
A long-lasting journey. Housing is built as an evergreen addition to the game, with its own roadmap reaching across multiple patches and into future expansions. Housing isn't something players should expect to finish, but instead continually look forward to the next housing release, be it new content or systems. This is a long-term commitment for us developers that offer player rewards. I'd say these are all pretty in line with Final Fantasy XIV's same pillars, and I don't think you can do housing successfully with a separate set of pillars than these. I mean, deeply social, having self-expression, and gradually updated over patches. Yeah, nobody wants to.
They might give them an island. Actually, now that I think about it, they might literally give them the island sanctuary that we have. That would be on their level. Again, when I say on their level, I don't mean to demean them or like that they're incapable or incompetent to make functions like that. It's just the way the fucking engine works. They have upgraded it graphically, visually. They've been upgrading the engine, but let's be honest, the engine has been around since 2006. That is the first iteration of the engine. They didn't make World of Warcraft 2. They've been kind of trying to upgrade it here and there, optimizing what they can. But again, I might be wrong. They might literally prove me wrong. They make the best fucking housing system of all times. But nobody who has history with the game reads this and thinks very positively without any skepticism.
To invest in something that will never see an update. And housing, above all else, is, especially as a form of self-expression and a social feature, something that needs to be constantly updated. So I'd say both games pretty much understand the fundamentals on this level. So let's get into more of the other bits. Like I said, I've seen a few snippets, so I know some of the things that are going to be coming up, but I think it's important to read all of this and see if I'm on the same page as them. One more important note, even though it's not an explicit pillar, wide adoption is a primary consideration for us as well. Most players should want a house in Azeroth, and if a player wants a house in Azeroth, they can have a house in Azeroth. Furthermore, housing is being designed to scale with the player's interest. If someone wants to spend dozens of hours a week on their house, that's great. If they're only interested in coming and going once or twice a month, that's great too. So that would read as no limited housing. Now, I don't know if they expand on this later.
So it's just going to be same shit as garrisons. Bliss has teased housing since BC along with the dance studio. Yeah, exactly. Like, I've been there. They have been kind of hinting at these promises before. It's like this time it's just a bit more official, but it's like nobody is expecting great results just from history itself. So it's like everyone can get a house. Okay, neat. So it's going to be like garrisons. It's like everyone can get a house in Azeroth. It's not going to be anything unique. That, like, for a 14 player, they can be nitpicky and see this as a jab at 14 because, ooh, I don't need to do a lottery. Yeah, but in World of Warcraft, it's not that fucking impressive if you play the game. Again, I may be just a bit too cynical about this, but it's like, I'm not hearing... Wait, hold on. Actually, the next point might be something that will clarify. I'm curious, where can you get it? Like, where can you put the house? Can you put it anywhere?
But I mean, that's point for World of Warcraft. If everyone can have a house, then of course every Final Fantasy XIV player looks at it and goes, yeah, everyone can have a house, can't they? Huh?
Okay, hold on. Okay, so maybe they do have a point. There are some houses, but it's like I'm pretty sure they're going to be gone eventually. Ooh, more houses. Okay, so there's an average... Oh, okay. It's starting. Oh no, houses are appearing. Okay, not a lot. Actually, yeah, okay, so we're actually kind of filled. Even Goblet is filled. That is actually very interesting. Very interesting to me. Huh. Okay, so he might have a point with... But to be fair, it might be a bit seasonal. But, like, he does have a point, I guess, in terms of, like, ooh, anyone can get a house.
Huh. I mean, even Final Fantasy XIV Mobile seems to be the case where everyone is going to be able to have a house. It's really just Final Fantasy XIV Retail falling behind. It has been a commonly criticized thing.
To be fair, we're not falling behind. We're not really falling behind, are we? Again, it's like the way the housing is designed. It's like not everyone can go to my island, right? They gotta be my friend. They're gonna have to, like, you know, go into the instance. But like my house with like that has a carbuncle table in there. It's there. Anyone in the world can see my house. It is actually part of the game. And raiders, casual, doesn't matter. They all have access to see my house, which is now officially part of the game for a small fee of fucking some guild and schmeckles and my sub money, I guess. But it's like, again, it's like, I want to remind that my whole opinion on housing, it's like housing is stupid. I kind of don't give a don't really care enough about it. There's a reason I just have one fucking table in my personal house and a gorgeously decorated FC house. I don't think houses actually give anything. So it's like, obviously you want a personal space, but if you do want a personal space, Final Fantasy 14 is going to give you a more unique experience of that space if you are lucky enough. If you're not, actually no, you can be lucky. Just find a server that has empty wards. There's still plenty of them. Alpha, Raiden, on Light Data Center. There's like, I'm pretty sure in Shiva there's multiple wards with empty houses right now. I'm just on the most populated. I'm trying to get a house on the NA server. Is it easy? No, but houses are going up all the time. I'm just picky because I'm trying for a house in the EMP. Oh, you mean Imperium. Okay, I forgot it's called that. Okay. No, that's understandable. That's honestly understandable. But it's like, houses are constantly like appearing, disappearing. It's like, it's not like houses are forever locked off from you. If they are, they're gonna add more wards again. They've done that in the past. But at the moment, the houses are kind of switching owners like fairly actively. Meanwhile, the system in World of Warcraft is normally just an instance. You know, everyone can probably have a house, and actually, again, let's finish listening to what they're gonna say.
It's no secret to Final Fantasy XIV players, and every time another game does something like this, it really makes Final Fantasy XIV players scratch their heads. I don't really think you can go, oh, Spaghetti Kodo game built on engine from however many years ago, because if they really want to make something like this happen, I can't help but feel like the dev team really could make it happen.
Nope, we actually watched a video by Edram earlier, specifically why we don't have a transmog system, and that even understanding like the basics of why we don't have the transmog system or how items are stored in this game, it would actually explain why the fuck we don't have unlimited or more houses in the game. Especially how preloaded all houses are. And not just, you know, small instances like the garrisons. So it's like, I understand the positive thinking, but the more I learned today, the more I understand it's not exactly that easy to fucking make.
Even if, yes, it may require quite a bit of resources because of any technical debt they may have gained. I think they can overcome that technical debt, and I think that the pressure is going to continually be on Square Enix to make that innovation. Yes, we are expecting some housing.
Yeah. The pressure is not big enough. The pressure is not fucking big enough. Honestly, the pressure is not big enough on this. The pressure right now is for content. We want mid-core content. We want casual content. We want 3 ultimates per expansion. We want good savage rates. We want more rewards and more shit to do. Criterion, Deep Dungeon, operational content, the savage rate in that operational content. That shit is going to be priority right now. Housing item, maybe 9.0. Not even 8. 9.0 maybe.
Housing updates, but it is not anything on the scale of everyone being able to get a house. It's just everyone with the house being able to modify the interior size, which, while nice, still doesn't address one of the core issues that it seems World of Warcraft is going to make sure is not a core issue right from the get-go. Zoning in on home, we've seen a lot of discussion and speculation from the community on where players will be able to have houses. We decided early on that there would be 2 housing zones available at launch, one for Alliance, one for Horde. Makes sense, with more possible places to live in the future. The Alliance Zone takes inspiration from Elwynn Forest with touches of Westwall and Duskwood, and the Hordes is inspired by Durotar, its coastlines, and Ashara?
No, I can see why he's confused. Ajara, specifically, that zone is like nothing but fucking ruins. There's just some... Hold on. Am I remembering Ajara correctly? It's nothing but fucking ruins, right? Oh, I actually know what they might do. Oh, I might actually know what they have a lot of dead zones that are just not being used. They might turn those. I'm actually thinking of a few zones that they might actually turn into housing zones. Because they're, believe it or not, historically, there were a couple of places where they were planning to make a MOBA inside of World of Warcraft. There are zones like that. There's also big PvP zones, like open world PvP zones, that are just not being fucking used. Like there's like one in Central Northrend. I don't remember what it's called. It's been a while. But like Ajara as a region, are there like more pictures of this? I reject all of it. 1 hour grind. I don't care. It's like, but yeah, if I'm remembering right, it's literally just like. Yeah, it's just ruins. It's just nothing there. Yeah. There's some Naga kind of floating about. I died there a couple of times. Is the Goblin area lesser? I remember. Yeah, there was an island specifically for Cataclysm. That island is gone. Like, it used to be like in the middle right here. During Cata, basically that Goblin Island essentially sunk. But like, I don't know. It's like I kind of get the confusion. Durotar, maybe I kind of see it. The coastline, yeah, that area is fucking useless. Elven Forest, maybe? I guess they are making their own zones, judging because like it takes inspiration from it. But it's still like Westfall and Duskwood are not exactly very pretty zones. They are pretty if you're playing classic.
That's such a weird.
But like, I kind of understand why Happy is confused about Zara, because like even I'm like, it's just a Naga-filled ruined place.
Weird combination for me. I kind of get touches of Westfall and Duskwood. I have played World of Warcraft, just so you know. Played it for years. But Durotar and Ashara?
No, Durotar is fine. Durotar is fine. It's very Horde-esque. Because Hordes love fucking living in the desert. But Durotar is fine. Durotar is understanding. You can build some huts, they can build some houses there. There's a lot of open space in Durotar. Durotar is fine. Ajar, though, I agree. Ajar is kind of shit. Ajar is kind of mid, honestly.
I mean, even if it's the coastline, I don't know. For some reason, for me, I mean, quite frankly, I wouldn't want to live in a Durotar-looking area to begin with. So I'm already more drawn to the Elven Forest-inspired area with Westfall and Duskwood. So, but that's just personal taste. I just wouldn't want to live in. It doesn't matter if I'm Horde. I just wouldn't want to live in Durotar. Having many, so there are two main.
That's why I play Alliance.
Reasons for this. One, having many housing zones conflicts with the second pillar of design that a feature is deeply social. In a world where players can live in many different zones, they become increasingly spread out and even with aggressive sharding, the chance of seeing other players, much less interacting with them, drops quickly. So sharding basically meaning like even if you have like
sharding is essentially server layering. Meaning there's multiple versions of the layer. Like sometimes, for example, when you, a good example of this is like, for example, when you are in a capital city and you don't see your friends, or any aetheryte point, you will see like an option to go to a different instance of the same map. Usually those shards or specific layers will be created. I'm explaining this specifically in 14 terms. It essentially is created when, for example, hunt trains are happening and people are jumping between several layers. That is essentially what sharding is. Only in World of Warcraft, because it's not instance-based game, it's open world. Essentially, the layer is a shard of the map, per se. So allies get a choice of green, brown, and dark. Blue, Horde get brown on brown. No, a bit of aquamarine too. You saw Jar. You got some Naga hanging around your area. Yeah, it was ruins and stuff. Then Kata happened and the goblins took it over. Ah, I see. I see.
Basically, it's like instances in a sense. Is the easiest way to describe it. But this is actually a very good point, and I think a point that they should probably. Here's the problem, is that players really do just want to live where they want to live. And so it's inevitable, I think, that people go, oh, we want to live there. I want to live in this area. I want to live in an area that looks like this. People want to live where they want to live. And I think that to some capacity, the social aspect kind of comes second to that kind of personal desire to only. I swear, I hear Ivy yowling off in the other room. Ivy, I'm recording right now. So while I agree with them that it kind of goes against the deeply social thing, I think it's just inevitable that players want more. It's just but it is a smart way to start the design, because if they start with this in mind, with everyone kind of being closer together and seeing how important that second pillar is, then if the second pillar doesn't seem as important to people based on your data, you can expand on it later without really much concern. So right decision to begin with, but they're right. It is inevitable that people will want more zones to actually live in. To putting it bluntly, zones are a lot of work.
God, it's not just me. His mic is peaking sometimes, right? Hold on. Well, World of Warcraft, when can I live under the sea, huh? Do something. 14 has the housing under the water. We might eventually, let's be honest. At some point, we actually might have fucking housing underwater, depending where we are. We are building a fucking... we might be building housing area in space soon. But it's like, we specifically, like, canonically have areas that are just, like, inside this big fucking air bubble of housing, like, of house areas. We might get something like that at some point. We're obviously not gonna get a new housing area specifically in Stormblood, but that's not of like, I don't know. It depends. We might have a Atlantis expansion at some point.
Really much concern. So right decision to begin with, but they're right. It is inevitable that people will want more zones to actually live in. To putting it bluntly, zones are a lot of work. Yeah, that's fair. I almost feel like the reasons are realistically switched, but no, they're right. We'd much rather do a great job with a small number of zones than do a passable job on a large number, or come up with solutions that take the player out of the world into their own personal instance of a zone, which I think a lot of people actually are okay with. That's the big thing. Even though we play MMOs massively multiplayer,
like, people would be okay with it as long as it's like, you know, what they promised. Like, a good example is our Island Sanctuary. Like, people were not happy because of how, like, lackluster, like, the way the content was finished, essentially. It doesn't have any continuation. There's no, like, more Island Sanctuary things to do in Dawn Trail, right? And because it's not as decoratable as some people's, like, small houses, people, like, they were disappointed in that regard as well. So it's like, but that essentially would be a level of housing I expect from World of Warcraft, honestly. So, like, a personal instance of a zone could work better for World of Warcraft. I doubt it's going to be like open world. But we'll see. We'll see, honestly. Again,
online, the number of people
I
who
don't know what they're
really
planning.
like to keep to themselves outside of deliberate group activities is fairly high, it feels like nowadays. So it's pretty interesting, because I bet you some people would a lot of people actually would be okay with the idea of their own personal instance of a zone. But then again, you know, still, I think they should see how that core pillar actually works first. We chose these as our starting points because of how iconic they are for their respective factions and how much they feel like home to so many players already. Yeah, I mean, I agree still. Like, regardless of the fact that I can find kind of flaws in that, they're right. Even, like, I don't know. I guess it really depends on how it's designed. Because, yeah, it's just a matter of waiting and seeing. Because any sort of counterpoint you have to this just comes down to seeing the execution first. Ivy, I'm just recording. She's zooming. Like, yeah? What? See, look, she wants housing. Where do you want housing? Do you want it in Durotar or do you want it in Elwyn Forest? Which one? I don't think wow is an answer. All right. I'm really curious to see how just the 2 zones works. But regardless, it's not like they should release like 5 zones to start with, or even 3 zones to start with. I think they've got the right idea.
No, obviously it's got to be just 2 zones at the very start. Honestly, they might change their mind and just make 1 fucking zone. Honestly, like, let's be fucking honest, they might actually make 1 zone. But unless they change their starting area again, or get rid of, like, all the you know, race wars story, they won't be able to. But essentially they will start with 2 zones. I won't like put it past them to make 1, but they might just do 2 zones. But, like, again, I think it's just going to be very, very basic.
Yep. We're excited for what we'll be able to accomplish with 2 zones, and we'll be sharing more what this means in future updates. Okay, outfitting your home. Similarly, there have been discussions in the community on whether housing will be pay to play or /win or not. Be a weird thing for housing to be, along with other conversations around real world money. Oh, okay, that's what they mean. We've been very aligned with our internal conversations.
Like, let's be honest, RTM is always present in World of Warcraft. RTM is always RMT is always present in World of Warcraft. Unfortunately, RMT is fucking rampant in World of Warcraft. RMT makes the fucking world go round in World of Warcraft. People sell clears, people buy fucking tokens, people don't fucking pay the sub because you can pay the sub with the with the WoW token. And just like if you grind enough gold in the game, you can pretty much play the game for free forever. But how do you think that happens? Either through RMT or through like mythic cells or nope, that's pretty much it, yeah. Carries. RMT is still happening, or people just sell gold. I don't know. But houses essentially will also somehow they will make it RMT. I promise you, somehow people will figure out how to make it RMT. Actually, I just realized I'm not even showing the video. More editing for me.
Housing is designed to be primarily player first and not revenue first. Housing will offer hundreds and hundreds of decorations and housing customizations via in-game rewards, but will also offer a smaller number of items in the cash shop. So this is really kind of a big thing to keep an eye on, because it can start that way, but a lot of the times monetization with features starts as something really kind of minor, and then just over time the sheer volume that gets added becomes egregious, and then all the things that players want most. And I think Blizzard does have kind of...
Oh yeah, come to Mythical +8 for that one housing item, just $50 around. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised because Blizzard has a tendency to do a lot of limited items. And because of what novelty people fucking carry, for just having a badge of honor on their character. You clear a mythic, you got cutting edge achievement. You got it like ahead of the curve if you clear heroic. If you got a mount, like for example back in Burning Throne, right? Burning Throne in Legion, right? So the Burning Throne essentially would drop this like magical bird mount, which was only available until the next expansion. Well, not the next expansion, but a certain patch, like pre-patch of the expansion, right? And a lot of people were doing charity runs, myself included. I was part of the charity. I would be doing runs, specifically carrying people and getting them the mount. There were still people who would still sell those runs, despite I personally, I have carried, like, I shit you not, I was so outgeared by that point. I was so well geared. I solo healed 5 out of, I believe like me and a friend of mine done like around 40 to 50 groups of just carries, like our friends or anyone else. We just carried like these huge groups of people just to get their heroic like mount, because it would be gone soon, right? And it's like, you'd be surprised how many people would be willing for that. Like, even in Final Fantasy 14, it's like, it sounds stupid, but people would be willing. Now, in Final Fantasy 14, for example, at the very start, people were very scared of the big old boogie-woogie healer strike or whatever the fuck, right? So not a lot of healers were around. Not because they were striking, I realized they were fucking full of shit. But because healers are a dying breed in general. Healing is not fun in this game. But there were party finder groups, and it wasn't just one, multiple. Pay us 120k per run or some shit, like to run dungeons. We have a tank and a healer to help you level. What? Like, and it wasn't just one group. It was multiple. People were literally like telling people like, pay us Gil and we will run you through these dungeons so you don't have to stand in queue as a dirty, yucky fucking DPS. Then again, just like the charity runs, you know what I did? I literally just put up my party finder and said, I will fucking queue up with you for free. I will do all your dailies with you for free. I got some very mean DMs for a couple of nights. Some people were not happy that that was affecting their shitty fucking income. But but if there's guild to be exchanged for services, RMT also exists. Like even right now, hold on. If I just remove browser, if I scroll the chat somewhere, there's gonna be like a guild selling fucking say. Oh, there you go. 5gold.com, fucking best guild store. And there's even one higher after that. Hold on. One more over here. It's the same person, but it's like people are doing this. And a lot of people think, "Oh, that's silly. People aren't that stupid." Nope, people buy it. The reason there's so many bots and so many people actually doing these services is because it fucking works. Some people would rather just pay some money, pay their fucking lunch money, get some guild, use the guild to buy clear runs and savage. Because like you will find party finder groups as well. Like help me clear this fight, carry for one. I will pay. I don't know. Like even I've done merc runs. Like I needed a weapon for. I needed a specific. I needed my bis weapon for my scholar because I had to do Fruv soon. I didn't have enough books. So what I did, I literally wrote, I will give 2 mil to everyone to do reclears with me in M4S, and for everyone to just pass on the weapon chest. I don't care about all the rest of the loot. I will pay everyone 2 mil. Bam. Technically that could be assigned to RMT because I would be essentially incentivized to spend money to get gil for simple services like that, to get loot, to get clears, etc. So RMT is always going to be present. So like a simple novelty of achievement or a title in World of Warcraft is not beyond fucking, fantasy that people wouldn't pay money for. They like the like say what you will about World of Warcraft like players, but they are gonna be like they're resourceful. They will make it work. They will figure out how to use RMT specifically for housing. They will, I promise you.
Of a weird reputation when it comes to cash shop items. When I think of the majority of discourses around the game's items, they do often revolve around their decision to do things with cash shop items. I think they also had a recent thing where they like had a cash shop item and then it pretty quickly after became free via like watching Twitch streams or something. There was some weird discourse. I'm probably wrong about that. So this is, I think, the number one thing people are going to keep their eyes on, and rightfully so. But even still, even if there's some discourse around that, the core functionality and feature working should be at the top of everyone's thought list. This is comparable to how transmogs and pets are currently handled in-game versus the shop. We want to allow players to have as many options as possible for creating their perfect home in Azeroth. Yeah. So, no surprise there. That's just one of those things.
At the moment, it's just war padding, honestly. I'm not seeing any test builds or anything. I see a bit of concept art, and that's it. And a lot of like, we want to offer players what they want. A lot of buzzwords. We want to offer people what they want. Hey, Blizzard. People wanted PvE in Overwatch 2. You ever gonna bring that? You gonna bring that back, or is this gonna be same shit?
We might occasionally see some discourse around, but the number of in-game available options.
Just to clarify, that was a joke. I understand it's two separate fucking development teams, but still, Blizzard has a track record of just talking a lot, promising a lot, and just not really fucking delivering. Normal Blizz MO right there. Show nothing but art and say the big words that people want to hear. Exactly. It's like, I like World of Warcraft. Like, if I had more friends in World of Warcraft, I would probably still be playing it here and then. I would still be raiding. Raiding is still fun in that game, but by golly, anything else up to raiding, the grinds, the reputation grind, it's like, it's so fucking boring. I'm done. I'm just so fucking tired. I'm so exhausted of doing fucking world quests for reputation grind. It's so stupid.
Options is hopefully one that players like. It's not even just about the amount of options. They have to be options players like. And hopefully all of the best options don't eventually come from the cash shop, because that's just not a good idea in any game. A home for everyone. There we go. As part of the focus of wide adoption, we want to ensure that housing is available to everyone. If you want a house, you can have a house. No exorbitant requirements or high purchase costs, no lot. Yo, I wish I had some gauntlets to throw on right now, because Blizzard literally looked at Final Fantasy XIV and went, your move. And no owner.
Okay. I've seen a lot of people just going like, oh shit, no, he didn't, about this one fucking mention of lotteries. But look, if this was anyone but Blizzard saying, if this was Guild Wars 2, for example, if this was even fucking RuneScape or anyone, if they were saying that, I'd actually be kind of interested in this whole debacle and see how they deliver and one up Final Fantasy 14. But this is Blizzard we're fucking talking about. This is the World of Warcraft team. These are the people that steal fucking breast milk. I'm still not convinced. Because of how historically they have not delivered content that people wanted, or because how they delivered it and made it specifically in a way that people will fucking hate it in a few. There's a reason Torghast is called Choreghast.
Onerous upkeep, and if your subscription lapses, don't worry.
People seem to forget the way houses in 14 used to be. Oh yeah, the old, like, to be fair, both systems are kind of cringe. Well, they're cringe when you don't get the house, but like the older system was like omega cringe. Like I've told this story before where I had to like wait for over 48 hours. I was stayed awake just to clicking on that placard. Like before, how the system worked, that you can click on the placard, see and try to purchase it, but they will only let you at a random point at a random point in time within like 24 hours of when it becomes available. I say 48 hours because I was running between multiple houses. I lost like multiple houses before I actually got one, but I stayed awake for so fucking long trying to get a house for my FC. So essentially, just clicking a placard for 24 hours, fucking nightmare. But lottery isn't exactly very exciting either, but I don't know. Again, because it's Blizzard, I'm not that scared, honestly.
Where your house doesn't get repossessed. Dude, they literally hard looked at Final Fantasy XIV with this section right here. Because
I mean, my garrison hasn't gotten repossessed yet either, on all my characters.
all of those are major complaints. How much gillet costs, the actual lottery for obtaining it, needing to keep your subscription going. Yeah, Blizzard's trying to one-up them on every front and not even try to be coy about it. Your houses are also shared amongst your warband with your different characters, being able to come and go as you see fit. So all of your alts also have access to your house. Your orc character can hang out in your alliance house without a problem.
That's kind of good. That's actually a very good thing. I wish we had that specifically for alts in Final Fantasy 14. Like, do I really need a separate fucking house, or do I need to be added? Like, my alt, does my alt actually needs to be added as a fucking tenant just to be able to teleport to my fucking house? Plus, it's like, if everyone had access to just one fucking house, we would not have, like, the issue where one person buys out an entire ward. It's not always bad, but most of the time it's just for RMT purposes. But sometimes people buy out an entire ward just to make a whole event. There's like a whole little market, there's performances, people will literally buy out an entire ward specifically to entertain people and make events for them. So it's not always bad, but 9 times out of 10, it's RMT. They're either making gold specifically for the sake of making gold or to sell it, or some other fucking purposes, I don't know. But it's like one person should not be able to somehow have multiple houses. But I think multiple alts should have access to the one house. Especially if they're made on the same like server.
Yeah, that's a pretty big deal. Housing rewards are also shared across your warband, so you'll be able to use your decor collection no matter which character earns it. Yeah, that's all ups. Final Fantasy XIV has its systems have been like, so for example, the lottery, the purchase costs, all of that stuff is partially because of the limited capacity of housing. So they tried to kind of find these methods of creating like a minor to major gatekeeping feature so that players don't try to buy out whole wards. Not that that's worked in some cases, and it's quite a few cases. And of course, tying it to your subscription, because it's limited, they don't want you having a house forever. So a lot of this still kind of comes back to the fact that housing is limited in 14. If housing became unlimited in 14, then I would imagine they would, A, do away with lotteries. What would be the point? B, you probably wouldn't need to keep your house, similar to apartments. You don't need to keep your house. You don't need to keep your subscription to keep your house, similar to apartments, which, you don't need to keep a subscription to keep your apartment because they're unlimited and there's so many of them. And no hyper. Yeah, I'd imagine all that would go away. So your move, Square, your move. And also
why does everyone like think that Square needs to answer this right now? This is just text. This is just Blizzard saying things. Again, if I saw at least a couple of screenshots, maybe a little video, anything to show, but like this is nothing. It's so far has just been nothing burger. People are making this out to be a bigger deal than it needs to be.
The alt thing is huge too. It's so annoying trying to do I get it. 14 is a game built with the idea you could do everything on a single character, whereas WoW is a game that has to be built with alts in mind because every character realistically does maximum of 3 things, whatever spec they're going within their individual class. So that needs to be built around this more. But that, to me, is not a reason why you would still not make the effort. Because not like alts don't exist in 14. So, there you go. Another point for World of Warcraft. Furthermore, it's not just warbands that cross factional lines, but friendships as well. So you're able to live in or visit your friends' or guildmates' house and their neighborhoods with minimal restrictions. Minimal. While it's not possible for your human character to buy a house in a horde zone, your troll character in the same warband can, and then your human can use. Oh, so the only restriction is just like you couldn't outright buy it with the opposite.
So you can have multiple houses then, essentially per character. The way I'm understanding this. But then if they introduce any little minor function, like for example the gardens they had in Garrison, people might use this, or mining. There was like mining caves as well. People might use this for actually no. even the crops that grow in my garrison, they're like so fucking out of date. Maybe you can craft something with them, but I don't think they're worth any money.
Faction. I mean, maybe there's another restriction. That's just the example they're using, but yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, that's literally points. Like everything's better about that. Everything's better about the World of Warcraft housing implementation.
Again, I would believe this if there was a bit more than just a bit of art. I would kind of like to see some actual screenshots or like technical concepts. I don't know.
By that description. Before we go, we want to mention the concept of neighborhoods as a small tease. Houses are organized into roughly 50 plot neighborhoods, letting players...
Liz is going to find out real fast why those systems are in place. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. They're gonna have to remove those fucking warfronts, islands, and Torghast to make space for the housing if they want to make it if they want to give it longevity and actually give it like actual support that will keep the housing content within interest of the player base.
Live next to each other, work together, and share in the rewards of being part of a neighborhood. Neighborhoods are instant but crucially persistent, so your neighbors can be your neighbors for years to come or until one of you moves. Neighborhoods can also come in 2 flavors. Public neighborhoods, which the game servers are responsible for creating as needed and maintaining. Private neighborhoods created by groups of friends or guilds to inhabit, progress, and customize together. So while an individual player can have a house, a community...
Okay, they mentioned public neighborhoods. We have public neighborhoods. That's a lot of promise right there.
Can have a neighborhood. It's just an initial look at the blueprint we've been working on for housing. There's a lot more ground to cover and details to get into, and we look forward to your thoughts and feedback as we share more articles in the future. This is a really neat way of doing things, and again, representative of the fact that there's not a limited number of housing, in that you could just choose to kind of... It's almost like like looking for a raid. It's like LFR versus like having a guild. But the housing equivalent of it. Now, I can't help but notice that they say share in the rewards of being part of a neighborhood. So I think they're implying that housing, there will be a reason to participate in events in your neighborhood?
I wouldn't say rewards. I'd say there's just got to be some things you can make in your house, or like you're probably gonna have a little garden, or maybe I don't know something. It's like I doubt you're gonna get specifically rewards for having houses. You might get achievements. You'll probably get achievements. Ooh, you spend like 100 hours inside your fucking house. But again, it's like on paper this sounds amazing. Like if I was a new World of Warcraft player, I would be excited for this. I would be excited if I start playing like very recently. It's like I would be very excited. Ooh, my own house. They're promising a lot of things. This is definitely much fucking better than what World of Warcraft has. But I've played World of Warcraft for many, many fucking years. I have experience with their fucking dirty, dirty, broken promises. This is just a lot of words on paper. It's a lot of jabs at 14. It's a lot of buzzwords. There's some concept art. Until I see it, I don't fucking care. I don't fucking care. If it's actually something cool, if there's actually going to be cool content, I don't mind. I might even resub. I might even buy the War Within expansion. I might. But so far, from my experience, something like this is just not enough to actually convince me. As shitty, as broken, as busted and janky the housing system we have in 14, so far, from my experience, it's a lot better than with just this one blog post, even with the promises. Because again, I might be just jaded and old, but maybe they're gonna make this actually fucking epic. But from experience, this has been promised for the longest fucking time. For the longest fucking time. Since BC, since Kata, since, well, probably not during Wrath. People didn't really, for some reason, didn't care about housing then. Since Kata as well. Like, there was a notion, there was a hint, there was discussions, private servers did it, devs at Blizzard kind of talked about as a consideration. Um, but so far, again, I'm treating it the same as I treated before. Like, it's just an idea that they might try to sell us on. So right now, they might have won like 35 people who are currently like subbing to World of Warcraft. Ooh, gotta level my character so I can do some cool housing shit. But take this with like a shovel of salt, honestly. Just like from someone who's a veteran in World of Warcraft, I've collected pets, collected mounts, I've done mythic raiding, I've done heroic raiding, I've done charity events. I've done Torghast, I've done Island, all those functions that they added with each expansion, I've tried them. Except for War Within. I have not bought the expansion because my heart is still in Dragonflight. But from my experience, Blizzard has not kept their word. Or at least if they did keep it, somehow it just turns out worse than what they promised.
In some capacity, because that's fine. I guess I'm indifferent about the prospect of doing that. Pugging neighborhood objectives, probably not as bad as pugging other things. And the private neighborhoods are really cool, especially for any sort of guild, content creator, anyone doing anything at all. Honestly, so here's the thing with me. I mentioned at the beginning about how I like wasn't swapping to WoW, and it's because housing is not a core functionality that makes me want to keep a sub to anything. I'm never like, oh, I'm only like even with 14, if I bought a house and I just didn't like want to subscribe, I would be like, well, I guess I'm losing the house then. Like I wouldn't like, oh, let me just log in once every 43 days or whatever to keep it before the 45th day rolls. I wouldn't care. So in the same breath, housing and WoW wouldn't make me want to play WoW. Like I still just don't want to do the rest of the core activities that the game offers. It's just not of interest to me.
Okay, Hap is pretty much just gonna tell his stance. He is essentially a raider. He does most of the content in 14, but he's not a big crafter boy or a housing enthusiast. But I don't know. I'm in a similar boat where I don't really care about the houses. My FC essentially is a big sentimental thing for me because it has a lot of history. It's a dead FC right now. All my friends kind of splinter. They all made their own FCs. It's like at some point I just kind of like released everyone. Kind of said like I don't want to manage this FC anymore. So I'm just keeping the house honestly, just because like I worked very hard to make it pretty. I might revive my FC, uh, somewhere Dawn Trail, maybe like in 7.2, depending how raids are gonna be. Maybe at the end, who knows? But housing isn't really priority. It is a nice thing to have, but it's like unless it actually gives me something that I can, I don't know. It's a very convoluted subject. I don't have any interest in housing. There's one house that I care about. My personal house can fuck off, my apartment can fuck off, and my room inside the FC can fuck off. The FC house, I'd rather it stays. That's if there's ever a reason that I'm staying sub is because of that. But I'm not staying because it's a large house. I'm staying because of the sentimental value. At some point I'll probably stop giving a shit, and if I ever decide to leave 14, I will probably not feel a thing when I leave. But I don't know. At the moment, like again, this is just from someone who had experience with Blizzard. This is just a nothing burger. This post is literally nothing. It means nothing, honestly, because it's just again, it's concept art and it's just words. Like even PvE in Overwatch 2 was kind of like shown a bit more, and that just ended up just being completely gutted. And if this ends up being gutted, you know what they're going to tell us? We gutted this because the player deserved the best, and we cannot provide you the best if we're doing this. So it's because of you, the player, that we did it. It's gonna be the usual fucking PR thing.